Good morning, Year 6. This is our final recording of the week because on Friday, tomorrow, you'll be doing a fraction code breaker. So for Thursday's lesson, we're going to be looking at equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. So it's just building on what you've been doing during the week. So let's look at our success criteria because then you'll be able to tick that off if you think that you've done it. First of all, it says, can I understand the relation between fractions, decimals and percentages? So basically, if it said the fraction 5/10, you would know that that's 0.5, and as a percentage, that would be 50%. Number 2 says, can I convert equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages? Number 3 is, can I show my calculations? So again, making sure it's really neat in your book. And number 4, can I use the correct method to support me? I'd like you to start off by giving yourself 10 minutes to finish your daily practice. You can always write how long it took you to do it and see whether or not you can ask a grown-up to help you with any of the ones that you don't know. So pause the video and give yourself 10 minutes. Right, so I'd just like us to start off by doing some starter questions and then I'll say the answers afterwards. So question 1 says, what percentage of the 100 square is shaded? And B, it says, what fraction would that be? So convert that percentage and fraction together to see if you can do it. Question 2, what percentage of this bar model is shaded? So this one here with the blue bits. And what fraction would that be? Pause the video, give yourself a couple of minutes, see if you can work those out on your own before I say the answers. Right, so for the percentages, you should have been able to count the squares and see that it was 16 squares out of the 100, so that would be 16%. As a fraction, first of all, you'd do that 16 over 100, and then you would look to see if there's anything that you can do to simplify it. So here, we've divided 16 by 4. So you do the same to the bottom. 100 divided by 4 would give you 25. So these are both equivalent fractions. It's the same amount, but just using different numbers. On question 2, you should have been able to see that on your graph, each block was worth 10%, which means every half a block would have been 5%. So let's see, how many full blocks did you have first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 80 and half, so 85%. Well done if you managed to get that, because that was quite a tricky one. And what fraction is that? So if you had 85 over 100, if you have a number that ends in a 5 and a 0, so 85 or 100, they can both be divided by 5. So that's always a good tip to remember in the future when you're doing it. So 85 divided by 5 is 17. And of course, 100 divided by 5 is 20. So either of them is correct because it's the same amount. So well done if you got 85 over 100 or 17 over 20. So as a recap, I just want to show you the difference between 1/100th, which would be 0.01, and 10/100ths, which would be 0.1, because it's a really common mistake that people make. If there is one square coloured in 100 square, that is 1/100th. So look here for the fraction, which is the same as 0.01, because if you think this is your ones, this is your tenths, this is your hundredths. The 1 is in the hundredths column, so that means it is 1 over 100, which is 1%. If you have 10/100ths, that can also be converted to 1 over 10, because both numbers have been divided by 10, which is the same as saying 1/10 and 0.1, which is 10%, because 10 out of 100 have been coloured in. I'd like you to have a look at this because this is going to be really similar to the activities you're doing today. It says here you've got 56 over 100. So as a decimal, you've got 0.56 because you have 5 tenths and 6 hundredths, which is the same as 56%. See if you can work these out. You can just say them out loud and do it at the same time as me. Right, we've got 97% here. So over 100, that's 97 over 100, 0.97. Here we have 0.33. Let's convert that to a fraction. That would be 33 over 100, which is the same as 33%. Moving on to some of the harder questions. So these are going to be those orange, red and purple level questions. If you're given a fraction that is not over 100, you want to convert it to be over 100 so it's really easy to work it out. As you can see here, the fraction that you started off with was 4/5. To convert this to a number over 100, you multiply the 5 by 20 to give you 100. Do the same to the top. Multiply it by 20 to get 80. 80 over 100 is 80%, which is the same as saying 0.8 or 0.80. The 0 just means it has 0 hundredths. You can write either, they're both correct. Here, 3/4. We want that 4 to be over 100. So how many 4s are in 100? You do 4 times 25 to get 100. And on the top, 3 times 25, you'd get 75 hundredths. Here, this blue arrow shows you that 100 divided by 25 is 4, and that's how it's got that way. So either way that you do it is correct, as long as you check afterwards that you've done it the right way. So how many 4s? There are 25 4s in 100. So 75%. Here it says we've got 3/10. We need to work out what number would go on the bottom. Where you divide it, you get 10. So let's do the inverse. What is 10 times 10? 100. Same here. Something divided by 10 was 3. Do the inverse. 3 multiplied by 10 is 30. 30 hundredths equals 30%. So as you can see with all of them, you need to find it over 100. 100 as your denominator, and that will really help you work out everything else. Finally, as a decimal, there's 2 different decimals here. See if you can work both out. Well done if you said 0.3 because it's 3/10, or 0.30 because it's 30 hundredths. Next one is just showing you again just common mistakes that people make. If you're given 9%, that is 9 out of 100. As a decimal, please do not write that 9 hundredths is 0.9. It is not 0.9. You know what 0.9 would be. That would be 90 hundredths because the 9 is in the tenths column. So that would not be correct for that. Your answer would be 0.09 because the 9 is over 100. That means the 9 should be in the hundredths column. So well done if you remembered that. Again with 0.3, it's just addressing some of those misconceptions that people make. So 0.3, who can tell me what column the 3 is in? Well done if you knew that that was in the tenths. So it's 3 lots of 10, 30 over 100, which is the same as 30%. You could simplify this. Some people know that 3 over 10 is the same as 30 over 100. So it's just showing you all those variations there. They're all equivalent. It's all the same amount. And 30% would be with this group here as well. So well done if you remembered any of them. This is your green task today. So again, we've been given all fractions over 100, so they're a bit easier. So they're a good warm-up for people that feel like they are a bit confused by fractions, decimals and percentages. So make sure you fill in every single box. It shows you what your fraction should look like. So over 100, your decimal, remember your 0 point before, and then your percentages here. Looking at the orange tasks now, you can see that they've stepped up some of the questions and it's a little bit more complicated for some of them. When it says the decimal is 0.08, please remember what column the 8 is in. The 8 is not in the tenths column, it's not 8 over 10. What is that number? Well done if you knew that the 8 was in the hundredths column, which means 8 over 100, not 80. So it's addressing those problems like we said before, which means that as a percentage, it would be 8% because it's 8 out of 100. Now you can see this one here, they've given you a bit of a trick question there, so I've made it harder for you. 9/10 is the same as saying 90 over 100. So that'll help you work out the next columns. So as you can see, it's always easy to convert those fractions to be over 100. It makes the rest of the columns really simple to do. Moving on to the red task then, this is a bit of a challenge for those who really want to push themselves and be really resilient in maths. You've got 4 fractions, 4 decimals and 4 percentages. What you need to do is join it across. So imagine it said 15 over 100. You need to work out which decimal it would go to. So in this case, you should know that that's 0.15. And then you would have to match it to the percentage that it matches to. Is it 20%, 50%, 15 or 5? And then you would draw a line to whichever you thought it was. And then you'd move on to the next fraction. For your next red task, I want you to match up with which child has which number. So again, make sure you're converting things over 100. See if you can work them out. For your purple task, you need to complete the table, but it's more difficult. I would like you to change all of your fractions to be over 100 because that's going to help you work out the rest of the columns. So if you've been given 2 over 10, tell me what that is over 100 before you complete the rest. If you've got 3/4, tell me what that would be over 100 before you continue. So looking at this first one, how many 10s are in 10? I've times it by 10. You need to do the same to the top. 2 times 10 is 20. So we've got 20 hundredths. Now I can work out my decimal and my percentage. Because it's over 100, it's much more simple. So here, 3/4 don't get tricked by that. How many 4s are there in 100? That's the same as saying 100 divided by 4. You should know that that 4 has been times by 25. So then you need to do the same to the top. You'd do 3 times 25 to work that out. Don't leave things out because they're hard, because you're really good at pushing yourselves to achieve your best. Finally, on purple, you need to correct Amir's mistake in this sentence. He said that 14% is bigger than 0.4 because 14 is greater than 4. So the first thing you need to do is work out what would 14% be as a decimal, and then you'll be able to compare the two and explain in full what mistake Amir has made. As always, if you need any help with your tasks, send an email to the Year 6 email address and somebody will be able to help you.